welcome back to The Content Bite. We are a podcast for anyone who uses their words to make money. I'm Rachel Smith, a journalist, copywriter, and content producer, and I'm also the founder of Rachel's List, a jobs board and community. I'm here with my co-host Lynn Testoni again. Hello, Lynn. How are you?
Hi again, Rach. I'm very well, thank you. Hello to all the lovely listeners. And yes, I'm Lynn Testoni, and I'm also a content creator, writer, and journalist. And today's episode is all about working for not-for-profits. This is something I've found really interesting and something that fascinates me. And Rach, we've got a great guest.
Yes, I have only worked for not-for-profits as a freelancer, so I'm so excited about our guest today. It's Nicola Conville. Welcome, Nicola.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we're so excited to hear about what it's like working full-time for a not-for-profit. I think Lynn's going to jump in, though, and tell our listeners a little bit about you.
So Nicola Conville has worked as a journalist and editor for 20 years across a wide range of print and online publications, including Body and Soul, Escape, Marie Claire, and Practical Parenting. She specialises in health, parenting, travel, and human interest stories, and is a member of the Australian Society of Travel Writers. She's worked for a number of NGOs and not-for-profit organisations, and she's currently the content manager at Australia for the UNHCR, which she's going to tell us in a second. So welcome to the Content Bite, Nicola. It's great to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Tell me a little bit about what is the UNHCR and what's sort of a bit about your role and what's your typical day like?
UNHCR is United Nations High Commission for Refugees. So globally, we support refugee situations all around the world, and that can be anything from emergencies to focusing on projects such as education, stopping violence against women, things like that. So it's a massive organization globally. Australia for UNHCR has been going for about 20 years now, raises about $30 million a year to support refugees worldwide. So
fantastic.
It's an amazing organization.
Yeah. What's it like working for an organization in times like this? I mean, this has been a weird year.
It has. It's been a huge year for the organization because there's been a number of emergencies, including COVID-19, and everybody had to pivot very quickly to working from home and conducting all of our work via email and Zoom. But it's an amazing organization to work for. There's a very caring culture. There's a really great sense of community and inclusiveness. And we have a great HR team, and they check in on us regularly, and they're very supportive and flexible. So it was huge. For me, it was huge because I had never met anybody on the team in person before starting to work for the organization. So I went straight into working from home over Zoom with a team I'd never met. So that was a bit unusual, but we got through it, and it's been great.
Wow. And so did you actually move from freelancing into that full-time role?
Yes, I did. So I had been working for Pacific Magazines up until May this year. And then I was freelancing for a few months, and I had always wanted to work for a not-for-profit or an NGO in a full-time capacity. Like you, Rach, I'd done a bit of freelancing. And then this role came up. It was a 3-month contract working for UNHCR, and it was advertised through an agency that I had a good connection with. And I contacted them and I said, I think I'd be a great fit for this role. And it just went from there. So luckily, after the 3 months, they made me permanent, which was fantastic. And I think I would have been pretty devastated to have had to leave after those 3 months, because I was very invested, not just in the cause, but in the team that we have and the community we have there. I really enjoyed working there. So I was glad they kept me on.
Wow. So as content manager, talk us through what you might do in a typical day. I mean, it must be weird working from home, but how's your day go there as the content manager?
Yeah, we started a shift to working back into the office part-time. So typically I'll work about 3 days a week from home and maybe 1 to 2 days in the office. No 2 days are the same, which I think is why I really love this job and why I've loved, any job I've had is, to have lots of variety is always fantastic. We have a number of projects going on at the moment. So we could be writing EDMs, helping to produce webinars. We're also working on a podcast for next year. And then we have annual reporting. We have a biannual magazine that we do. So there's lots of different kind of ways we produce our content. And there's lots of variety, which I love.
Sounds like you've got, more of that creative producer role as well as the writing side of things, which is really interesting.
Yes, I guess so. I think that we have a fairly small team. So I think you have to sort of have lots of skills and be willing and open to learning new ones as well. But we're lucky. I think the team that we have, there's 6 or 7 of us on the comms team. Everybody has very different types of skills. So I think we cover a lot of bases with everything that we can do, which is great. And we all kind of work very collaboratively and learn from each other. So it's good too.
Has there been a big dramatic change from journalism? What are the biggest lessons you've learned? I mean, different sort of skills?
It's a huge change. I think in terms of content especially, I had done some human interest stories, but I'd mainly worked in lifestyle publishing. So it's very different going from writing about interiors or parenting to writing situation reports for the Beirut blasts, for example. But also I think one of the biggest learning curves was coming in and like learning the history of the organization and how it works, and how, the United Nations is huge and how we sort of fit within that structure. And just, switching to, I think, working on lots and lots of different projects and doing a lot of reporting and planning. Those weren't really things I had done a lot of as a journalist. So it's been a steep learning curve, but I've been there for about 4 or 5 months now. And I think around the 3-month mark, I really felt like I was, kind of hitting my groove, if you like. And it's just sort of, got better day by day since then.
What sort of transferable skills do you think you brought from journalism to this?
Fundamentally, I guess writing, editing and proofreading would be the main skills that I think that I've brought across. And also I think being able to work under pressure to tight deadlines is really important. To be able to switch between projects and prioritize and plan your day well. Those things are very important too, because although we have a set amount of things that we work on week to week, things always come up. And then if you have an emergency, it's down tools and all hands on deck to support that, for instance. So you have to be very flexible and able to sort of manage multiple projects at once.
Oh, that's interesting.
Have you found that you've learned a lot of new skills and a lot of new sort of programs and systems and that sort of thing?
Yes, I have. I mean, certainly I've never worked on a podcast before, so that's going to be really exciting. I mean, we're in very early stages of planning, but that's been really great. My manager also sent me to do a course at UTS, just an online course to learn more about UN agencies and what they do and their histories, and that was really helpful as well. So the training is there too, which is, always helpful. And
that's lovely, because in journalism, I can't remember the last time anyone sent me on a training course.
Well, I know. And the interesting thing was that I was only a contractor at the time. So I really appreciated the company putting that money behind me and putting that faith in me to do that course, because
that's lovely. Because that's what I wonder is about the culture being different, because I don't know, there's a nice myth that it's something like, especially an organisation helping refugees, that everyone would be lovely and caring and supportive. And especially newsrooms lately, they've been a bit cutthroat and quite, everyone's so stressed. Is it a big change or?
Definitely. Oh, look, I think I've been lucky to always work in, in nice teams and things. And this is certainly a very nice team too. And it is very inclusive and community minded. And, I think this year there's a big onus on mental health, and we certainly get regular check-ins with our team and with the wider team in our HR department. So that's been really good. Yeah, I mean, it's a very fun environment too. We have a community fundraiser going on for the month of November as part of one of our campaigns called the 2BK Challenge, 2 billion kilometers, which is the number of steps that refugees take each year to get to safety. And it's been hotly contested because we're doing an internal competition to see who can do the most steps, and people are bringing in treadmills and putting them under their desks and people are clocking up 35 to 40 steps a day. And every morning we all log in and put in our steps. And so, that's been super fun. And we have staff meetings every week. And then our monthly staff meetings are themed. So it might be like spring or Halloween or Christmas or whatever. So yeah, it's a serious business, but there's a lot of fun as well.
How do you, you must come across some very sad stories. How do you manage that? Is it difficult to switch off?
I do come across very sad stories, and I think doing PIC research also is, it can be kind of emotionally, I wouldn't say draining, but certainly, especially anything to do with children. As a mother, I suppose, that really always resonates But I always think to myself, like, my reality check is it's not me, and that the work I'm doing, I hope in some small way plays a part towards improving these people's lives. So I guess that's how I sort of deal with it from my own mind.
I remember, did you guys watch the ABC program? It was set in a refugee camp.
Stateless.
Have you guys seen that? That really stayed with me, that show. Yeah.
That was with Kate Blanchett. She's actually one of our Goodwill ambassadors.
Yep.
Yeah, she spoke at one of our webinars at World Refugee Day a couple of months ago. So yeah, very well, I think.
No, it's great work that you're doing. I mean, what's sort of the biggest thing that you've noticed when you started working at NGO? The culture or the work is different? I mean, how?
Work is very different. I'd have to say, I think and maybe this is just particular to this year, when I started, the number of meetings really overwhelmed me, because as a journalist, I only ever had like one whip a week with my broader team. And then I would sort of just go to my desk and just work kind of fairly in a solitary sort of way for the week. I knew the stories I had to do, and there'd be emails and things like that, but it's very, very collaborative. There's lots and lots of meetings. And because I started working there during COVID, all the meetings were via Zoom. And initially there was sometimes 7 meetings a day. And I felt so burnt out at the end of every day because of that. But that sort of died. I think a lot of that was because I was just being introduced to wider teams and things like that and learning a lot. That has died down a little bit. But there's also a lot of reporting. There's quite a lot of rounds of approvals for all the content we produce. So I think that's another big thing, where when I was working, for instance, like my last role was digital producer at Home Beautiful. So I would just sort of write a story and put it up, and that was it, But now if we produce a piece of content, it has to go to a variety of internal and external stakeholders. Accuracy obviously is really, really super important. And then if it involves our global team, they've got to see it as well. So you have to kind of build in a lot of time for all those rounds of approvals. If you have a piece of content that's going to go out in a month's time, you have to start working on it now, so that it has to go through all those checks before it finally gets approved and gets published.
I think that was the biggest thing that I realized when I started doing more content marketing. It wasn't necessarily an editor making changes on my copy. It was a legal and compliance team. I found that really hard in the beginning. Yeah, it's strange, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the UN is famous for its bureaucracy too. I don't know how I'd cope with all the bureaucracy. As a journalist, you tend to be quite unfettered, as you say. Is that stressful?
Really, in my role, it's not too bad. I guess it's more the getting used to having lots of approvals, as I've mentioned, and that's the main thing. And there's certain things, for instance, there's some emergencies that we won't launch appeals for various reasons, and it's all, tied into the organization and how it works. But at the same time, it hasn't been too bad, actually. No.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So what do you love about it? And what are the trickiest things? I guess the meetings, perhaps, but what do you love about it?
Back-to-back meetings.
Reporting and planning is very important. So I think trying to balance that with actually producing the work and thinking ahead and just trying to sort of juggle everything, I guess. But what I love about it is the feeling of giving back and for using my skills for a cause that's really, really worthy and worthwhile.
Yeah, I can imagine that. I've been working on a big project about DV this week, and I've had to interview these, women's organisations that have received funding to create DV programs, and all of them stayed open during COVID. And the things that they do, it's actually quite amazing. There's such a hidden network there of people helping refugees and women fleeing crisis situations, and then people in the background setting up, finding all the furniture, putting sheets on the bed, making sure there's food in the fridge. But then they're hidden. It's just this hidden, amazing network. And it made me really realize, how many people are out there, doing such good work. And you must feel that as well, Nicola, in what you do.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think where it really hits home to me is when we run our webinars. So the last couple of months, we've had a few different webinars. One has been for Beirut, and then one for one of our new campaigns, which is the Leading Women's Fund. And hearing our colleagues who actually work in the field is pretty intense, but also really, really inspiring. And it's great to know on the ground how, for us, as sort of a team over in Australia, how our work is making a difference, and also really important for our donors and supporters to know how their money is making a difference, the kind of things that it's funding, the projects, the people it's helping. So that's always really rewarding as well.
Have you had to get any more digital skills than you had at Pacific Mags, like SEO or, writing metadata with your content and that sort of thing?
Not me personally. We actually have a separate digital team. There is someone else on our team who works on that side of things, but it's definitely an area that I'd like to upskill in a little bit more. I did work in digital for 2 years, and I used Umbraco, which is the same CMS that we use at Australia for UNHCR. And we have a new version coming in next year. So when that comes in, I'm hoping to get training on it. And I think it's good for everyone, especially on a small team, to be able to sort of do everything. So if someone's away, someone else can fill in and so on.
Yeah, absolutely. So what about, seeing you've moved from journalism into NGOs, what would be your advice to journos out there who are perhaps, have faced redundancy and are kind of thinking, what do I do? You said that you had a relationship with an agency that got you that role. Is that typically where you'd go to look for roles like this?
It's certainly one way. I can only really speak to my own experience, but I've been writing and producing for NGOs and not-for-profits for probably about 7 years now, only in a small way. And some of that work was paid and some of it wasn't. And at the time, I didn't really mind whether it was paid or not, because it was just a way for me to give back and also to, get some experience in that area. So by the time this role came up, I already had, that experience.
You had a nice portfolio, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I did. And a proven interest in the cause as well, I suppose. But yeah, the agency that I worked with, I had been in contact with them for about, 9 months or something before this actually came up. And I saw it on their jobs board and I actually approached them. So that's kind of how it worked for me. But I would say for a journo, if there's a cause that you're particularly interested in, contact that organization, offer your skills. If there's no budget there, I wouldn't often say do unpaid work, but in this instance I would, because it's worthwhile. You're giving back and it's also giving you experience in a new space. So I definitely think that's one way to do it. For sure.
And it could pay off like it did for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Fantastic. I think one of the really interesting things for people who are moving from publishing to other areas is they want to know how the money differs. I would assume you'd have to take a dip in salary to go to an NGO. Has that been the case for you?
No, actually, it's been the opposite. When I was working in publishing, I was pretty much on the same salary for about 10 years because salaries seem to either stagnate or even shrink back a little bit. So I was sort of pleasantly surprised when I took on this role that the money was actually much better. And in addition to just having a more solid salary, we also get salary packaging, which can add maybe about another 15,000 per annum onto your package, which is, pretty great.
Wow.
That's quite amazing. It's quite surprising, really, because I think maybe people in publishing don't realise how most wages have plateaued and they probably don't realise it. They're regarded as normal.
Yeah, possibly. It's definitely worth going out there and looking around, that's for sure.
And also, you wouldn't realise, would you, that because like you mentioned before we got onto recording, you can be in publishing and be on the same salary for so long and you start to sort of think that's all I'm worth, but actually you can get some really high paid jobs out there using your skills.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's how I did feel in publishing. I think my confidence maybe took a bit of a dive because I felt, I would never sort of earn more than a certain amount. But now I sort of, being on a better salary, I just feel more valued, and in lots of ways more valued. Like, as I was speaking about earlier too, about, being sent on training courses and things like that. Just feel like the company is investing in you as a person and values your skill set.
Mm-hmm. Great.
That's really nice. Really nice to hear. Okay. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners about working for NGOs? Things that you might have surprised you or that you found really rewarding, that you unexpected?
I think for someone who's a bit of a lifer when it comes to working in publishing, it was hard to leave. I'd worked in magazines and newspapers for about 20 years and absolutely loved it. And I didn't really want to go when I did, but I sort of felt with it just felt like a shrinking landscape. And I thought, this is the time to move. So I think it's been really, although it's been a steep learning curve, it's been so worthwhile. And I've really, really enjoyed learning so much and working in a different space. No, it's just, yeah, it's nice to learn new things again after so many years.
Yes.
What is life if we're not learning new things and moving forward? So,
and I
Good
suppose
point.
as well, like you say, so many of us are in mourning about magazines and
yes.
you know, that industry. So it's nice to feel that you can be passionate about your work again, even though it's a completely different area and a
absolutely. And so many of your skills as a journalist are transferable to other organizations, whether it's an NGO or it's, you know, government or, you know, schools or, you know, so I think people sometimes get really down and say there's no jobs out there. There probably aren't many jobs in publishing, but there's plenty of other jobs out there, believe me, in other areas where your skills will transfer and you reap the benefits with, you know, new skills, new training, you know, new experiences. So it's definitely worth taking the jump, I think.
I love that. Just thank you so much for sharing your experiences. I think that will give a few people hope out there. Don't you think, Lynn?
I think so too. I was thinking it's such a lovely, positive final message to finish on, because our skills as journalists and writers are important and valuable, and they are transferable. And I think it's a really positive thing. Thank you, Nicola, because I think Rachel and I have really enjoyed hearing about your work, and it makes so worthy. It makes me feel a bit bad when I'm writing about air fryers at the moment, and it seems really tedious.
I'm writing about mortgage freezers. I have felt a little bit humbled by this podcast episode.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been so great to have you. It's been really interesting and quite empowering, Rach. What do you think?
You know, we have a lot of guests come on and we've really looked forward to this episode, Nicola. We really wanted to hear, you know, a bit more about what you did and how you made the transition over, and it's just been really great. I think it's going to be a really useful and interesting episode for a lot of journos, a lot of our journo listeners out there and people who might be moving into content. So thank you again.
Oh, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
And we'll share in our show notes, we'll share some details about the organisation Nicola works for and some of their projects. So take a look at Rachel's list in the blog part and have a look at the show notes for this episode.
We'll be back, I think, next week.
We'll be back next week. So thanks. That's the end of the show. And thanks for everyone who's listening and sharing us on social media. So please do share. And also don't forget to leave a rating and make us feel lovely and wanted.
Thanks, everybody. See you next week.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.